People often weigh the difference between a traditional or a Roth IRA. Let me explain some of the differences between them. With a traditional IRA, your contributions, depending upon your income level and whether or not you have a retirement plan at work, some of those contributions or all of those contributions may be tax deductible. With a Roth IRA, you're putting in after-tax money, so there is no upfront deduction. The other difference is with a traditional IRA, you're going to pay taxes as you withdraw that money in retirement. With the Roth, you don't pay taxes when you withdraw the money in retirement. At that point, it's all tax-free, but on the front end, your contributions are made with after-tax money. The withdrawals in the Roth IRA are tax-free in retirement, provided you've met a couple conditions. You're at least age 59 and a half, and the account's been open for at least 5 years. If you meet both of those requirements, then the withdrawals that you make in retirement from that Roth IRA are tax-free. With regard to the contributions that you make, specifically to a Roth IRA, because you're putting in after-tax money, if you had an emergency, you can withdraw your contributions at any time for any reason without taxes, without penalty, even before age 59 and a half. Just the contributions, not the earnings. And the reason for that is because you've put in after-tax money. So I wouldn't use this as your emergency fund, but in a worst case scenario, it's a backup that's available to you without taxes or penalties. One of the great things about the Roth is that it gives you a lot of flexibility in retirement. There are no required minimum distributions at age 72, like with a traditional IRA. At a traditional IRA, whether you need it or not, you have to start taking the money out beginning at age 72. With a Roth, you don't have to. So it gives you greater flexibility. Not only do you now have a pot of money that you could withdraw from in retirement without tax consequences, this is also a pot of money that you could literally push off until you're older. And if you've got a history of longevity in your family, you may want to have a pot of money you can dip into when you're in your 80s or 90s. A Roth IRA would serve that purpose. Deciding between the two, people often obsess about the tax bracket in retirement versus what it is today. Frankly, that is very hard to assess. Even a couple of years out from retirement, that's very hard to assess. So I wouldn't base your decision on that simply because it's so hard to pin down. Instead, consider the ability to diversify your tax exposure. You may already have significant retirement assets that are on a pre-tax basis and are going to be generating taxable income in retirement. And so the idea of a Roth might make sense. The other benefit, consider the flexibility on the withdrawals. If you like the idea of having a pot of money that you can dip into without tax consequences, or money that you can not have to withdraw at a certain age, you can push off until your later years. That's where a Roth can be advantageous. Another way to think about this when you're trying to weigh traditional versus Roth IRA is think of a snowball rolling downhill. And this is money that you're going to have invested for years and years before you withdraw it in retirement. And this is particularly relevant for younger investors because it's a longer hill. You've got more years for that snowball to roll downhill, for that money to compound and grow. At the top of the hill, that contribution is a snowball the size of your fist. At the bottom of the hill, when you get to retirement, that snowball is the size of a car. Well, with a traditional IRA, the contribution at the top of the hill, some or all of that might be tax deductible. But when you get to the bottom of the hill, that big old snowball, the one that's the size of a car, you're gonna have to carve off a chunk of that for taxes each year as you make withdrawals. With the Roth, it's the opposite of that. At the top of the hill, that snowball is after-tax money. You've already paid taxes. There's no tax break. You're putting in after-tax money. But the benefit is when you get to the bottom of the hill, that big old snowball, it is all yours. There is no tax on any of those withdrawals that you make in retirement. Choosing between a traditional or Roth IRA doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can do some of each. You can choose to make contributions to both a traditional and a Roth IRA, just as long as the total contributions between the two do not exceed the annual IRA contribution limits.